everyone, this is Eliana and I'm going to be showing you card number 2 with the Simon Says Stamp August card kit. I am stamping my image with Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I will be using Copic colors to color my picture in. And I stamped 2 images in case that I mess up. I have a second one ready to go. And I am stamping on paper tray ink Stamper Select white cardstock. And I don't have a wide variety of Copic markers, and so I am just using what I have. I'm starting with RV13 and I'm just coloring the bottom part of the ice cream, and then I am shading it with RV17 followed by RV19. And because these colors don't blend well together, what I'm doing is I'm using my RV13 and touching the tip of it to RV17 to make another color and using that to blend my colors in. And so I keep trying to blend until I can get a smooth color. And you do need to be careful with the pink because it does tend to bleed, which it did once I added my light blue-green, which is BG10. It did start to bleed a little bit, but I figured since I was going to use a darker color that it would just blend a little bit more, and it did cause a little bit of a purple color in between, but it was fine with me. So the next color I'm using is BG13, and I will also be using BG18. And because these colors are so different, I did use the same trick that I used earlier, and I used my BG10 to touch the BG13 tip, and I used that to blend. And it seemed to work okay, and I did like the final color that I came up with. And I was just trying to use some colors that were going to be on my card. I continue to blend my inks in. As long as the ink is wet, you could still blend, but once the paper gets saturated, sometimes the colors seem to have a mind of their own. So I should have stopped coloring here, but I just kept going. And in the end, I did end up what I like. I did end up liking what I made, so I was okay. Now for the stick, I am using E43 and E55, and I am using the lighter color first and then going back in with the darker color to try to give a little bit of a shadow. E43 is my lightest brown color, and since I didn't have anything lighter than that, I chose Y15 for the bite part of the ice cream, and that is also another color that is in the pattern paper that I'll be using for my card front. And because it felt like it was a little too bright, I tried to tone it down with the colorless blender. And when I'm done coloring, I'll let it dry for just a second, and then I will cut it out. And you do notice that the back of the popsicle has marker on it, so the color has bled through, so you want to make sure that you have something on your work surface to protect it from bleeding through. And I've just adhered some foam adhesive to the back of it, and I'm bringing out my stamper to help me prepare my next piece of embellishment. I am taking the sentiment from the stamp set that came in the kit, and what I want to do is I am going to stamp it onto my piece of scratch paper, and I'm using paper tray ink, True Black ink. I'm stamping the image onto my scratch piece of paper, and what I will do is I will use the negative space to line up where exactly I want to stamp onto my die cut. And by doing this, I can make sure that I get the sentiment perfect on my die cut. So I'm just taking my popsicle and I'm just placing it next to my sentiment. That way I can get my positioning just right. So once I get that in place, I use my magnets to hold my negative space cardstock or printed paper onto my stamper. I am taking the die cut that I cut out with my nestabilities, I'm dropping it right into that negative space, and I will secure it down with a piece of Post-it just in case that my die cut sticks to the stamp. Then that way I could restamp it should I make a mistake on my stamping. But it turns out correct the first time. I've taken my card, which is a piece of Stamper Select cardstock in an A2 size, and I will be adhering the pattern paper to the front. And what I usually do is that I usually turn it on end, and then I just line both up on my grid mat there, and then I will just trim the excess paper off the edges of my top folding card. I like to use my craft knife simply because I just don't feel like I get a clean cut with my scissors, and I just save that piece for later. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my pieces and just start assembling them in a place that I like. And I do use some more foam tape to adhere my circle die cut to my card. And I do like using this thin foam tape. It just doesn't add a lot of bulk to my card and makes it easier for mailing. And I take a small piece of the striped pattern paper that came in the kit, and I just use that piece to ground my embellishment so that it doesn't seem like it's floating. Even though I could probably get away with that on this card with all the dots going across the pattern paper. And I just line up my card with my grid on my mat, and then I just adhere that piece 1 inch from the bottom of the card. I trim off my excess, and then I will adhere my popsicle to my circle, and then my circle to the front of the card. And once I place that down, I decide that my popsicle needs a little bit more embellishment, and so I add some sequins to the front of the card. And I like using my little tweezers to adhere my pieces down. I tried using my quick stick, but for some reason it keeps the little sequins keep popping off and heading in all kinds of directions, so I just use my tweezers to adhere the sequence with the Claudine Hellmuth multi-medium. And I decide that my popsicle needs to be a little shiny and just for more interest, and so I just use my glossy accents to cover my whole popsicle. And it does look cloudy, but it will dry clear and shiny. And I'm just using the tip of my tweezers to poke out the air bubbles, and you want to make sure that you clean those off or your tweezers will be stuck together. And once I get that done, I'll give you a close-up. It's just a simple card, but I really like the pattern paper, and I just thought it was cute. And thanks for watching, and be sure to head over to the blog and subscribe to the blog and to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.